It's an honor and my privilege to host an eminent panel like you on this very important subject, global robotics, trends, and implications for India's digital future. My name is Avinash, and I'm one of the founders of Global Talent Exchange. We are a global platform mobilizing emerging tech talent from skill-rich areas to areas with skill shortages. Technology today is pushing the boundaries of human possibilities and working towards making life better across the world by accelerating social and financial inclusion. It has also taken on the critical task of making people and the planet healthier. With India emerging as one of the largest technology hubs and companies in India chasing these audacious goals, it brings emerging tech at the forefront. The idea of this series, Technology Game Changers, is to trigger an exchange of viewpoints among experts like yourselves and see how we are placed as a nation to seize the opportunity in each of these emerging tech areas. Robotics and automation economy. We've long seen robots in industry handling repetitive tasks and heavy machinery, but new technologies are moving robots out of the warehouse and into the offices. Collaborative and service robots are already helping firms prepare meals, support workers, assist shoppers, and engage banking customers. Rapid advances in robotics and artificial intelligence are making inroads in the workplace, with machines carrying out physical and cognitive activities. What will this mean to us in today's world? Let's hear it from the experts here. To lead this discussion, we have Mr. Achyuta Ghosh. Achyuta Ghosh has over 19 years of professional experience in analytics, research, and consulting. He's an active technology evangelist and has assisted Fortune 500 companies and investors with strategic insights on digital transformation and its impact on business strategy, future of work, and global sourcing. Achyuta heads research at NASSCOM. In his current role, he actively works with different industry stakeholders on driving innovative and developing the roadmap in disruptive technology areas such as AI, IoT, blockchain, robotics, and virtual reality for the IT industry. Prior to NASSCOM, Achyuta led the smart cities business for Ford Smart Mobility in India, where he collaborated with the Indian smart cities to understand their unique transportation challenges and designed innovative solutions through partnership and in-house technology product development. He has also worked in technology organizations such as Frost & Sullivan, Genpact, and WNS in various leadership and consulting roles. A quick gentle reminder for all of us that this is a closed room session, so you can really be vocal about what you're saying here. It will be attributed to you as an individual if there is a challenge, it being attributed to you in association with your company or the policy with your company. I will leave it to Achyuta to take this forward. Over to you, Achyuta.
Thank you, Avinash. Hello and welcome to this session organized by Global Talent Exchange on global robotic trends and implications for India's digital future. I'm Achyuta Ghosh and I look after research and insights at NASSCOM. Some context about the topic before we get started. I mean, the size of the global robotics market, including industrial, non-industrial robots, was more than $100 billion last year. And it's growing at a CAGR of over 26 to 30% over the next 5 to 6 years. One of the fastest growing segments, I would think so. Total stock of industrial robots was about 2.7 million and new robotic installations are growing pretty fast, with China, Japan, and US the top markets. At the same time, the automation market is about 200 odd billion. It's double the size of the robotics market today. And many companies, many industries today are automating mundane processes, right? I mean, these are using RPA, robotic process automation, to automate everyday rule-based processes. This helps streamline operations, reduce costs, saving time, right? And companies are trying to meet their demands around reducing cost and increasing efficiency, right? From banking to automotive manufacturing, I think we've seen RP applications present everywhere. And I think the India ecosystem is also coming together. There are a lot of colleges, a lot of institutions who have started premier courses around these topics, which actually help drive the skilling ecosystem. It's safe to say that the world since COVID has changed. The pandemic has forced companies and industry to rethink their strategies and push automation at their forefront. Our recent research at NASSCOM also kind of highlights that as one of the key priorities for the industries going forward. Um, Today's discussion is organized with an august panel of speakers from different sectors of the industry uh, who can display a very balanced view on the topics. And things that we would like to cover include, what's happening in the global robotics market? What are the key trends that are out there? How's the India market shaping up when it comes to robotics? How to build India as a robotic talent hub, the skilling angle. How do we really drive development of robotics across the world from India? And then, what does the future look like for the overall industry in general? So some of these themes is what we will touch upon in this discussion. And it gives me great pleasure to offer a quick introduction to our speakers today. Um, I think we have Professor Subir Kumar Saha, who's a Professor, Department of Mechanical Engineering at IIT Delhi. Professor Saha is a 1983 mechanical engineering graduate from NIT Durgapur, India. And he completed his master's from IIT Kharagpur and PhD from McGill University in Canada. After 4 years of work experience in Japan, he has been with IIT Delhi since 1996. So that's a 25-year stint. He is actively engaged in teaching, research, technology transfer. Professor Saha was awarded the Distinguished Alumnus Award for 2020 in academic and research by NIT Durgapur. He established the Mechatronic Laboratory in IIT Delhi in 2001 and contributed significantly to the development of the robotics program. He's also been awarded the Humboldt Fellowship in 1999. He was the Naren Gupta Chair Professor at IIT Delhi during 2010-2020, and is presently acting as the Project Director of IHFC, a not-profit company of IIT Delhi in the area of robotics. Professor Saha has also published a book in 2008 called Introduction to Robotics. So I think he's completely apt for being one of the leads in this session. We also will have Rajkumar Sharma joining us. Rajkumar is president of All India Council for Robotics and Automation. Rajkumar is since April 2014. He's had more than 2 decades of leadership exposure in various industries such as FMCG, telecom, media, e-commerce. His initiative to launch the world's largest robotic championship, Techno Gyan, has inspired and encouraged youth for participating. The 5th edition of Techno Gyan witnessed 28,000 registrations from 22 countries. And he has conducted a lot of other prestigious events in this space. Next up is Pranav Saxena, who is the Vice President and Engineering at Vice President of Product and Engineering at Flipkart. He is a passionate product leader and technologist who loves to solve complex challenges to make a difference. At Flipkart, he is responsible for building a new experience for New Bharat, creating next generation services and customer journeys, which gets you whatever you want, wherever you want, and when do you want, with frictionless payment and affordable models. We also have with us Sanjay Gupta, who's the Vice President and India Managing Director at NXP Semiconductors. Sanjay is spearheading 4 diverse R&D units comprising of more than 2,500 engineers. He also leads the organization's business in India while ensuring local compliance. He is a board member of IESA Executive Council, which is the highest apex body for Indian electronic semiconductors, and leading critical charters in industries such as automotive. Sanjay started his professional journey with Motorola. In 1996, he holds multiple US patents and numerous technical publications. We also have Dr. Shrutin Ullman, who is the Director of Clinical Affairs at Philips. Dr. Ullman's passion is to design and architect sustainable M-Health solutions. He develops and clinically validates healthcare value propositions. Dr. Ullman is a board member of the Philips Committee on Biomedical Experimentation, responsible to evaluate projects from a regulatory, ethical, and medical efficacy perspective. Dr. Ullman is a physician and a surgeon with a special focus on mother and child care solutions. His academic qualifications include MBBS, DOIH, Public Health, MTech, and PhD in Biomedical Asset Design. We have Pankaj Sharma with us, who is the head of technology at Tech Mahindra. He presently head Makers Lab, the R&D arm of Tech Mahindra, responsible for technology innovation in advanced sciences of cloud, blockchain, AI, IoT, drones, robotics, AR, VR. He's also specifically leading 4 big bets for the organization in domains of energy, logistics, defense, and space. He is an inventor, architect of 5 patent-pending IPs and flagship innovations. Last but not the least, we have Sudeep Srivastava, who is head of robotics and intelligent automation at Schlumberger, digital transformation leader with 19 years of experience across the space of robotics and intelligent automation, enterprise mobility, cloud, wearables, IoT, BPM, chatbots, and AI. He also heads robotic process automation, business process management teams, and drives the Mobility Center of Excellence for Schlumberger Mobility Solutions across US and India, and also leads the Xamarin team to build enterprise mobility apps. I think this is a quick overview of the speakers that are there with us, and we'll keep the discussion free flowing. I have a set of questions, and while I'll ask a couple of people to respond, but we would love all the participants to equally participate and share their views in any of them. So with this, I'd like to get started. First up, I think a very, very critical time-bound question, right? I mean, we are just coming out from one of the biggest pandemics that the world has ever seen, right? So how has the robotics sector responded to the pandemic? I mean, are there any thoughts from the panel speakers? And maybe Pankaj, Subir, you want to get started? Over to you.
Yeah, so this pandemic has actually accelerated not just robotics as a domain. I would say pandemic has accelerated each and every science or technology domain. Every aspect that you see, people have worked hard, and it's actually triggered something which, in the science community, that they can serve the mankind and take it out of this despair times. When I talk specifically of robotics, I see robots being built for throat swabs, and this is pretty common in China as I see. Then I see healthcare robotics. And during this particular span, even in India, I would say, the adoption of robots has been so great. Just go on Amazon.in and you'll find, and Flipkart, you'll find thousands and thousands of robots available for home mopping, to cleaning, to disinfection and all. So what does this show? This shows the adoption has come in. And trust me, I was surprised that there are 3 households within my locality which have actually bought these robots as such. So this adoption has gone very well. And these robots, I see stories coming out of, robots being used for dispensing medicines, for assisting in, monitoring the life-saving systems in medical healthcare. So this has been phenomenal. This has actually triggered a race which will probably help the humanity in times to come.
Professor?
Yeah. So I agree fully with Pankaj, and it's seen almost like 200% increase in the utility of the robots. That has been a statement by one of the leader in this industry. Unfortunately, he's no more. Milagro Robotics. Mr. Karwal is not there. He was actually in a board for our Technology Innovation Hub, which you have just mentioned. That we have a Technology Innovation Hub on robotics, which is funded activity from the government of India. Now, talking about his business, he mentioned once that there is a 200 increase of his cleaning robot. But talking about IIT Delhi, per se, we have 2 interesting events happened due to this pandemic situation. One is with the collaboration of AIMS New Delhi and another company called Advarb, we could actually build a tele ultrasound system, which has been in the news for last about a month. And it is one doctor from AIMS came to us and said that, can we have ultrasound without touching the patients? And so we thought how to go about it. We knew that we need an arm, but who will buy that arm? So Advar was working on one of the projects at IIT Delhi, and I told them, and they immediately said, okay, we'll buy the robot. So immediately they bought a robot, spending about 20 lakhs. And then I have a PhD student who started working on the development of the algorithms. And then AIMS said, okay, we'll do the testing and we'll tell you the requirement. And very nice triangular collaboration. So we have succeeded demonstrating it. Now we want to take one level up to make it relevant robust. That's one. Second is one of our homegrown activity as a student club. Robotics has been evolving for many, many years by taking part in a robotic competition called Robocon. It is organized by Doordarshan. So one of our ex-students, he started a company called Peer Robotics. He claims that a mobile robotics company, and he demonstrated in one of the hospitals at some place in Haryana, and then medical mobile robots actually to dispense medicines, providing food in the wards and stuff like that. So it is growing very fast, and people are very enthusiastic to take the advantage of such situation. Yes.
Agree. Thank you for your inputs, Pankaj and Subir. And I completely agree. In this age where contactless is the new normal, I think, and the scale at which you suddenly have to implement contactless, I think robotics is a no-brainer, and that's the reason why even in our research we have seen that at the end user industries, spend in robotics from a healthcare standpoint, from a fintech transaction standpoint, I mean that has completely gone up big time. So good to hear that, opening comments. Anybody else would like to talk about this, or we move on to the next question?
Maybe I could just touch on
yes.
the healthcare aspects, and both the speakers actually alluded to it. Yeah, so robotics has actually picked up a lot in healthcare, and especially the pandemic has I would say given a thrust to robotics and automation and contactless. So actually I was involved in this research for quite a number of years before the pandemic struck. And what we were trying to do is to digitize care pathways. So as a patient falls sick and his journey to the hospital, his recovery, his return to home, and how he recovers at home. So this is the entire patient journey. Sure. So what we try to do is to digitize the entire thing, and we found that there were hardly any buyers for these things before the pandemic. But after the pandemic, it changed the scenario completely. So we now find a lot of people wanting to digitize care pathways. The hospitals are very keen on that. We actually are at present, as we speak, having a very big study at Manipal Hospital in Udupi, where we have a contactless sensor at the reception of the hospital, which measures the vital signs of the patients as they enter, so that the people who come with COVID-like symptoms, they are separated from people who go for normal examinations, maybe a pregnant women coming for their routine checkups and so on, which do not need to get exposed to patients with possible COVID. So a lot of, I would say, a thrust has happened in this area. And yeah, very happy to discuss on those aspects. Yeah, so these are a few starting remarks. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure, we'll come to you when we talk about the healthcare angle over here. A quick one to Sanjay. Sanjay, what are key technologies that you see are enabling, speedy growth of the robotics industry in India?
Yes, sure. So, the way I feel robotics is going to grow further. And for sure, I agree that pandemic has expedited this process by at least a decade. We were actually forced by circumstances. Otherwise, it was anyway taking a natural course. And the simple way to think about that is, we are actually trying to replace a machine with a thinking like human. And we describe with simple 4 phrases, sense, think, connect, and act. And if these 4 technology aspects are integrated into these advanced machines, they will be able to do the job. And underneath are the various technologies which are making it a reality. So sense, as human sense things around us using our eyes and ears and our perception about the world around us. Same way, there are technologies which are taking a very speedy penetration into these smart machines or electronic gadgets or semiconductor products through radar technologies, through camera and computer vision technology, and various kinds of sensors from a traditional sensors, whether it is a touch or gravitational, all the way to the small range ultra wideband and NFC and Bluetooth. All these aid into the sensing capabilities of these smart robots. And think about a smart robot either as an automotive, which is trying to run autonomously and trying to predict the path pattern of the pedestrians or the cars, or it is a industrial robot in a warehouse setup, which has the capability to look into the storage and the various inventories that are present using the camera vision technology, and thereby connecting to the ecosystem. So sensor technology is a one big technology that will take a huge leap forward in next 1 decade. It's already is, but it will get multifold. The second is a think technology. So like human think, after processing the information, they think about it, they do a data processing. The name of the game is data and data analytics, and that's where the new technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning come into picture, where we are trying to build as an industry the advanced algorithms which are feed into these robots, again into application ranging from automotive to an industrial robot to a health device or to a vacuum cleaner, which have the capability to take loads of data in a real time, multi gigabytes of data per second, and then process that information smartly so that they have the ability to take some right decisions, just like humans. And I think that is second biggest trend for the decade, that will generate huge amount of opportunities for India as well as the rest of the world in all departments. The third one is connect. So once you sense the information and process the information, you need to connect to the ecosystem to use that information, which is again by using technologies like 5G for connecting to the cloud. If it is automotive, then there are competing technologies called DSRC, which is car-to-car Wi-Fi, you can say in simple words. Or there are some specialized technologies that will be operational on a shop floor, so that rather than on a very, very small dingy workplace, there is a central edge device where all the information will get stored, and then this will be the connecting point to the cloud. And the fourth one is, once you do sense, think, connect, the fourth is the act, and how we act with the most efficient, power optimized manner, so that these robots are just like humans can at least work long hours. It's not that in 30 minutes they are done. So how to have the low power battery technologies to power these robots. These are the four things I think will be the changing technologies landscape in the times to come. And I will talk more about it as we progress forward. But certainly very exciting for all techies and skill improvement, and for country to really leapfrog into this area.
I completely agree. And I think you brought out an interesting point, Sanjay, over here, that the progress of robotics is not only dependent on robotics itself, it's dependent on a lot of associated technologies, right? It's both good and bad in its own way, that, sometimes other technologies move fast, you kind of gain from it. And sometimes you are held back by the growth of, say, for example, edge or AI for that matter. So I think there is a dependency, which is good and bad, both over here. Anyone else in the panel would love to talk about, some of these technologies that are powering robotics?
So if I may add, I would say there are three principal contributors which have actually accelerated, and Sanjay rightly mentioned. I would say one is the change in how the powering of systems have happened. The batteries which now are available, they had been available earlier also. You had those lead acid also, and you had lithium polymer as well. However, the discharge rates which are now available, they allow the motors to be very, very agile, which earlier are not there. So one particular aspect is the batteries with high discharge rates. That's one principal component. Second is the availability of lidars. I remember just a couple of years or 3 years back, I could buy a lidar for no less than ₹1,00,000 sort of. And today they are available for as low as 8,000 rupees. So that makes a huge momentum in, understanding and figuring out the point cloud and distance of objects around you. And third is visual AI, the way AI is able to now make object identification, 3D manipulation, RGBD cameras available. So with that, a lot more sense is available. For example, Tesla has done away with lidars. They're completely on vision AI. So that's how, the industry, with these three principal components, it has actually changed the whole landscape.
Sure. And Pankaj, you touched upon battery tech. I think that's something which is a limiting factor for a lot of our technology growth, right? Whether it is space travel or anywhere. I mean, do you see anything new coming up in the horizon? One you said is lower discharge rate batteries, but is there anything, drastical, anything dynamic that's going to come up, which is going to completely shake up this space?
So they are working on a lithium polymer with a slight amalgamation of metal halide into the whole system. So that would
Okay.
also, and that probably will give discharge ratings which will be almost 3 times the capacity. And once that happens, even the life of the batteries and the recharge cycles would probably go high. And it is anticipated in the next 2 years we'll have these in production in the market. So even your cell phones with whatever capacity they have right now, they would need only, almost 1/5 of their batteries as of now. So that's what's coming up.
Okay. Staying on the topic on the global angle, next question is to Sudeep, and I think we can get the other panelists also to chime in. What kind of trends do you see in this global robotics and automation industry? Top 5 trends that you see will power robotics over the next couple of years.
Good. Thank you for the question, Achyuta. I think I agree with fellow panelists. I think the biggest thing I have seen why it is happening now and not earlier, right? Like Pankaj was saying, and even Sanjay was saying. One, I think the biggest shift is in the mindset shift also.
Yes.
Look at where people, they were okay, and I think that is what pandemic has done. Technology has always been there. If we go back, probably it goes back to 70s, 80s, I don't even know, maybe much more before that, right? I think the biggest shift that we have seen of pandemic is in the mindset. And I'll tell you one of the examples, because we have personally gone through that experience overall. The first reaction to the pandemic from everyone was headcount cutting, headcount, because you don't have budget, you have operations that is not working anymore, the clients taking out business, the activities going down. And if everyone is sitting, and we are in oil and gas services, right? And if everyone is sitting at home, no one is using oil and gas. There are no cars moving, there are no flights moving. And that was dramatic, right? The first reaction was cut down, okay? And that was the first 2 months reaction. Then the sudden realization is that great, now we have less force, but we still have to do the work that we were supposed to do. Who will do the work, right? And then suddenly this whole element of robotic and automation came in the perspective, saying, now we have to do more of robotics and more of automation. So everyone knew, believe me, 10 years ago, I was part of one of these NASSCOM sessions where one of these, one of the CEOs said, automation will take away all the jobs, right? And 10 years now, I haven't seen that happening yet, right? So I think it's also how we as human being react to all the necessities around us, and how, based on our needs, like Pankaj, you were sharing, right? That you see robots being used in the house for mopping today. Why it is being used in the house for mopping today? Because with the pandemic, all the luxury of household people who were available to us to help the house, they are not available today. So people are looking for ways. I think the necessity is the mother of invention, like we always say. I think this is what is happening. This is the biggest trend that we have seen, and we have personally seen in our industry also. Suddenly by June, March, April, the lockdown happened. Suddenly we see huge cut down, and by June we saw huge influx of people, the businesses coming back to us and saying, how do we automate? How do we come back? And it's happening across the board in our personal lives, in our professional lives, across the board. So I think this is why it is moving, and this is why the adoption, we have a big chip shortage today, right? So I think those are some trends. And then specifically talking about what we do is we optimize, completely automate the businesses. We are definitely in industrial automation. We are big times in analytics in terms of vision-based analytics, sensor-based analytics and stuff. But one of the realization right now that people are also getting is to build end-to-end automation we don't have our ecosystem in place in terms of sensors, in terms of processes, and in terms of that. So some of the journeys that Schlumberger has been going on is heavy on industrial automation. We are talking about rig of the future, okay? And this we have been talking before pandemic, because it is very, Schlumberger is very, heavy industrialized base. You have to do drilling of, the rigs to get the production of the oil done. But in the pandemic, if people are not allowed to go to operate, to the rigs to operate, how do you work on that? So we are looking to operate, people less rigs. We are looking to move toward where you virtually operate everything, not only virtually able to train people, but virtually able to operate. And then rigs goes, the drilling, the bores goes down to probably 10 kilometers. So we have sensors part of each in the drilling. We have sensors in the bits and where the drill bit move and cuts, and the sensors are passing the data for us to take the decisions. But I think where I see a biggest shift toward with the automation, I think now the adoption has increased, but where I see biggest shift is where we can give the decision making to the robots, right? And right now people want to be very cautious because there are always two sides of automation, pros and cons. But how much of intelligent automation we can build where decision making is being done by the robot themselves, and we remove the element. And the other element we are seeing is human and bot collaboration, how human and robots collaborate to complete a process. So those are some of the trends we are looking at.
And Sudeep, good that you mentioned that in an ASCOM conference this happened, because we faced the backlash after that, where will our jobs go? Where will the tech jobs go if automation takes over? And I think this is something that a lot of people have repeated and it has not happened. I think automation is only going to expand the capability of work that we humans can do. And the value add aspects. So I think from a job perspective, there's not going to be any impact. In fact, the number of jobs would actually rise.
Absolutely.
And that's my hypothesis. I'm sure you guys also feel the same thing. Any example of a human and machine working together, a cobot working together in your line of work? Could you share something on those lines?
So then there are two elements of automation, just to clarify for the audience, that there are two elements of robotic automation. One is the industrial robots, which is physical robots working. And then one is the bots that works in
robots,
machines doing processes and taking care of end-to-end process orchestration. Now where we are seeing the trends right now is we have a heavy engineering base, because we build our own equipments and design the equipments and stuff, right? In end-to-end process automation, we are still not very comfortable giving the decision-making to the bots. And right now, I think not so much that, we will see a world where bots take over. I think that's not the presumption at this point of time. The presumption is, if the bot is taking the decision, what is the financial impact of that today? And specifically, will it impact us big time financially and compliance and those stuff? So we don't want to fall on the other side also just because we have gone. So what we are trying to do is we're going for end-to-end process automation. I will give an engineering example that we are doing from overall the designs of engineering to what has been passed on to development of the engineering, the testing, and the whole process. We are trying to design what elements can be completely given to the bots. Bots completely does the process and does the design. And then we give back the decision making to the humans. Now, humans take the decision to choose if there is a critical choice between an option A and option B. And then the human pass it back to the bot, right? And then the bot further process and complete the process. We have been doing this proof of concept for a year now. Once this becomes successful, this has a massive scale opportunity. That's what we are looking into that.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
May I add?
Yes,
we are mentors to one of the universities over here in Pune, and what we have exactly done is we have replicated an entire undersea kind of operation for drilling and extracting oil. And the objective of a robotic system, which is being built right now, which is a hydraulic robot, which can go down and it can save a lot of problems which associate with the human going down and then replacing walls or changing the nuts and all those things. And that has been done right here in Pune, and that shows the synergy between human operator operating from above the sea and the robot going down and actually doing all that stuff. So that replica has been done. We have spent almost 4 crores on that to build that whole and mimic the entire operation over here. So it's happening.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing, Pankaj.
Thank you. So a quick one, I think Rajkumar has also joined us. So Rajkumar, quick one for you. Top 5 industries that you see are being transformed by robotics. What are the top 5 areas you see that robotics has the most transformational impact?
Yeah, Achyuta, we cannot limit it with only 5 industries. In fact, you can see robots are used in almost every sectors.
Right.
Before coming to the major the industries which where robots are involved, I would say you need to understand there is hardware and there's another is software, right? Lot many technologies like RPA. Most of the companies started using RPA processes, right? And during this pandemic, what we have observed, I'll tell you few of the some study AICRA have done. In 2019, when we have surveyed, hardly 200 and something companies was there in India who are dealing in robots, either in some hardware kind of a thing or assembling parts and making some bots and all, and using some offering some kind of services, right?
And which year was this, Rajkumar? Which year?
2019, I'm talking about.
2019.
Right. In just 2 years' time, you'll be surprised. Today in India itself, there are more than 2,000 companies involved in robotics, some part of, like somebody is dealing in hardware and software both. This is one development what we could see after pandemic.
So 10x growth in 2 years.
Yeah, it's a huge growth in fact, and people started understanding the importance of robotics. See, robotics is nothing new to us. If you see everywhere, robotics is there. Some of the machines what we are using, it's a robot actually, right? Coming to the main point, what all sectors? See, automotive sector is already using industrial robots. Manufacturing sector is already using the robots, and you would be seeing huge growth in industrial robots in coming time. If we have some surveys been done, almost 200% plus growth you would be seeing in next 10 years time only in manufacturing sector and automobile sector as well, right? Apart from this new sector, especially the healthcare, medical, as somebody already shared certain example. So you can see robotic surgery is there, especially disinfection. Post pandemic, this has come up as a major requirement. Most of the hospital and companies are adopting this process and solution of disinfection, right? So robots are doing all these processes. That is one. And remote operating system, like some operations can be done remotely. That is also again came into the picture. So medical industries again growing. You started using this robotics very fast growing industry. Apart from this, if you could see, there are lots of changes in geopolitical scenario, right? So because of this scenario, defense sector is also started utilizing robotics system, especially the autonomous solutions, right? If I say some development in India, they're also making certain projects, like DRD is also already making certain projects wherein some kind of surveillance will be done autonomously, absolutely. And apart from this, not only, and I'll say on the border areas, we are developing certain projects which can utilize the some kind of explosive things if that happens. These are the project which is being developed by the DRDO. Soon you will see will be in the news itself. So this is what India has done. If we talk about some developed countries like obviously Russia, China, and US, they are already developed lots of robots. Like, see, there's a huge casualty happens, whenever they deploy the army. So obviously, all the developed countries are looking for the solution where humans are not involved, especially for the war and defense purposes, right? So that is going to be the third major sector when robotics will be involved. And another new sector which is coming is agriculture. In agriculture, of course, there's a lot of things which is to be done. If we say like India as a country, wherein 50% economy is agriculture, it will take time to adopt this technology, because it's not about the people who are into agriculture sector. They need to be educated and they have to be adopted for the technologies. So it will take long year time. But if you talk about certain countries, especially Israel, I would say they are adopting in agriculture lot many like equipment, especially for harvesting the crops is there. Driverless tractor kind of a thing they have already developed and using that frequently, right? And they started using drone. In fact, you might be aware, India and Israel have already done a tie-up wherein some drone technology would be utilized, for defense purpose. But the same technology they are using in their agriculture sector as well, right? So this is another sector which is growing very, very fast. So I'd say these are the 4-5 major sectors where we could see some fast growth, in terms of robotics using, right? But we are not limiting with this. There can be n number of other sectors as well, wherein you will be seeing lots of growth in agriculture in this robots.
Thank you. I think that was pretty exhaustive. I also want to take advantage of the deep domain expertise that our speakers have, right? And maybe we'll delve a little bit deeper on each of the domains that they're coming from. So, my first one is to Pranav, right? I mean, Pranav, Flipkart would be hugely focused on customer experiences, right? So is robotics an application area for your customer experience program? Would you like to elaborate on how you are using robotics at your site? Over to you, Pranav.
Thanks. So I think there are three parts to it, right? And I will precisely come to your question. One is that, the scale up or the, adoption is happening in 2-3 dimensions. The dimension number one, where, manually the scale is not possible. So it's not that, robot is going to replace the job, but there are, scenarios where the scale itself is not possible with that quality, right? So that is part number one. Part number two is basically given that the consumers are becoming more quality conscious, more service conscious, right? India is focusing on export oriented, businesses and so on. And if you have to match up to that quality, you need some disruption in your production, processes. So that is the second area where, the automation and robotics is penetrating. The third reason is that, I think with the embedding of both software and hardware, a lot of dependence on hardware kind of is reducing, right? Software can do a lot of work, right? I think someone mentioned about, vision, right? I mean, you don't need to specify what kind of shape you will pick, right? Vision can figure out and configure and so on, right? Near real time, right? And from Flipkart perspective, I think most of the investments are happening on largely collaborative robotics, right? So in our case, we, of course, towards the end, when the robot works, we go for the cobots. But otherwise, decision making is completely AI, and I mean, there are no manual intervention. So from recommendation to final, picking, packing, shipping of the product, everything is taken by the system, right? There is no human intervention. So I think from our perspective, we have solved the decision part. When the actual working happens, that is where the human and robot interaction happens. The key focus area for us is basically to provide a faster delivery, a better, flawless delivery to the consumer. So that is our first focus area. The second one is basically you scale, right? How can you do the stuff in lesser space compared to, the other systems? So these are the 2-3, areas where we are, or that is what is driving us to, invest heavily on this space. I want to comment one more point. I think someone was commenting that, in between 2019 and last 2 years, a lot of companies have come up. I think India as a whole ecosystem is at a very, very nascent stage. We may like or dislike, but we work with all the national, international, all sorts of players. I think there's a lot of scope for us to really invest in this space. So both from R&D perspective, the support from ecosystem perspective, and so on.
Agree. So thanks, Pranav. Moving on to Dr. Shrutin. Dr. Shrutin, you did touch upon the journey, the patient journey, and how you kind of mapped and created robotic impact areas. Would you want to expand on healthcare? Where are the uses of robotics that you see, not only at Philips but also outside of Philips? And where has the development really become faster, in the last couple of years, pandemic induced, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, thank you, Achyuta. So yeah, so you're right. So healthcare has been largely impacted with the pandemic, as all of you know. So a lot of doctors, nurses were very acutely required during the pandemic. And the healthcare sector in India had a lot of flaws. I'll not go into it. And some of them are real, some of them are, I would say, created by the press. But what everybody realized is that how automation could help during a pandemic, especially into healthcare. And you see a lot of apps which have come because of vaccination certificates were done on the app. Local people, people who were not exposed to such technology before, also started availing of this technology. So there was a lot of evangelization of technology, democratization due to the pandemic. But apart from that, healthcare has always been a sector which is driven by regulations, as you know. So you would find that we are more adopters of technology. We wait for other industries to actually develop the technology to its, I would say, maximum, and then slowly it percolates into healthcare with a lot of regulations. And it is rightfully so, because what happens is that healthcare decision making, though there is a lot of dependence on artificial intelligence to do it, a lot of bias could creep into how these algorithms get developed. So, for example, decision trees or algorithms which where you know exactly how weights are assigned to a particular equation, they are more important from a regulation perspective than using neural networks where nobody knows how the weights get assigned, or computational models. So from that perspective, healthcare, I would say, is extremely regulation driven, especially because of patient safety. And AI models, they need to be very carefully evaluated so that a particular section of society does not get benefited, because in the past, because of various experiences, certain sections of society did get benefited. And if the AI model tries to replicate or mimic what humans were doing in the past and just develop models based on that, then of course you would find that the model would start favoring certain sections. So developing a very ethical AI model, and that would also depend on how robotics evolves. It requires, I would say, a time period before it actually becomes mature in the healthcare sector. But having said that, what has happened is that the healthcare, we started looking at two aspects. So one is robotics in relation to clinical development, and robotics where and automation which are required where in the hospital space for maybe disinfection, like many of the speakers referred to, and other areas where, like say for example, if because many times nuclear medicine drugs are given to cancer patients, and they start emitting radiations for around 6 to 10 hours, because the radiation, the drugs have a very short half-life. But even in those 6 to 10 hours, the healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, relatives of the patients do not need to get exposed to those radiations. And in those areas, robotics has picked up in a large extent, especially robots serving these patients, robotics in rehabilitation, for example. So having an exoskeleton where people who are sort of having a lack of mobility of certain arms are helped by robots. So all these aspects have developed faster than areas where robots actually or AI actually helps doctors in decision making. That's because of the problems I referred to earlier. So, so there have been sectors, and what has picked up largely is the human-bot interface. Like as we see, as surgeons age, so they accumulate a lot of experience, but they also, their physical ability goes down. There are tremors in their hands. They may not be able to stand for long hours. So a lot of companies have gone into robotics during surgery, and especially surgery where it is very difficult to perform, like for example, the eye surgery, which requires very small, I would say, stitches to be made on lenses, or where the surgeon cannot see clearly because the field of view itself is very small. So all these areas are very much picked up by robots, but these robots are not fully automated. They are controlled by a surgeon who is sitting a bit away from it. And sometimes the surgeon also could sit geographically away from where the surgery is done. So we are doing certain experiments in that direction, but not into clinical practice so far. But in clinical practice, you see the surgeon sitting in the same room, the robot operating on the patient, but not really the surgeon surrounding the patient as you would have seen before. So these are some of the areas where robotics has picked up, but regulations is something that is very requires careful consideration. Like I heard Professor Saha mention about tele ultrasound. So in India, there is what is called as the PNDT Act, which says that ultrasound cannot be done in a unregulated manner because of sex determination that it has been used for in the past. And this PNDT Act has been a very deterrent even in the hospitals to adopt ultrasound where actually it can be useful. So there are a lot of pros and cons of how and exactly the right use case where robotics can be chosen. And that identifying the right use case and making the business sustainable, I think is the major challenge that we or most of the healthcare industry faces. But once you identify the right use case, make it sustainable, I think that is, I would say, the sweet spot that everybody is looking for. And the third point is, of course, sustainability from a planet perspective. So you see my background with a lot of greenery and water body and so on. So one of the decisions that most of the healthcare industry has taken is to use, or at least have devices into our systems which are sustainable from a planet perspective, because we find a lot of e-waste which is created either because of batteries that somebody referred to, or using chips which get outdated over a period of time, and so on. So we spend a lot of time actually seeing how we could increase the lifespan of our devices when in actual use. And the reason also is because it takes a very long time to create a robotic surgeon. So to train a surgeon using a robot while performing surgery. So we try to increase lifespan from a learning perspective so that the surgeon becomes or can use his knowledge for a longer time. So these are some of the areas that I would touch upon now to begin with. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shutin. I think you touched upon a lot of areas, and thank you for explaining the main application areas. You touched upon AI bias. I think that's a whole can of worms altogether, which probably needs to be addressed, in a much more concerted level. Professor Subir, you also had some comments earlier on the healthcare piece, right? Would you want to want to share something on the topic, or we move on to the other sectors?
Yeah, I wanted to add. Thank
Yeah.
you. So you see, the technology innovation hubs, there are 25 of those created by the government of India, on cyber physical systems. And of course, robotics is one part of it. And particularly IIT Delhi has been assigned a collaborative robotics. Talking about medical robots, essentially they are all cobots because they do not independently work on themselves. So now coming to that ultrasound, yes, Dr. Sutin, we faced this difficulty. That is the reason the AIMS doctor had to come quite handy, and it was under their, locations where it was permissible. But now the doctor is very enthusiastic, and he says, other than ultrasound, there are many such application can be done. For example, if I have a mobile X-ray unit carried by this thing, so many of the tasks which otherwise doctors are exposed to the X-ray radiations can be avoided. So now he on his own has taken some initiative to make a proposal to buy that so that new X-ray portable devices using robotics. Coming to medical robotics, the one which IIT Delhi's technology innovation is focusing is in the training purpose as well. Because when you talk about robotics in India, no, we yet not able to develop a full-fledged industrial robot by our own for last 45 years almost. No? There are many attempts, but still yet unsuccessful. However, for industry, it is not a limitation because they are always able to buy from the foreign market. But being to be able to be Atmanirbhar or to be self-respectful, this is needed. So what we thought is we can take a soft, because India is an IT giant, we all know about it. So blending IT strength and whatever hardware we can do it. So we thought the medical simulation would be one area where India can take a very good leverage. Even though simulators are used by hospitals, but as a technology institute, we decided to start a medical simulation center, what we are calling it MCC, a medical cobotics center, where we'll start with simulators to train the young surgeons, because that is also need of the day. The medical education is including those as a part of their curriculum. And through that process, whatever indigenous developments would be happening, would be testing in our centers, and slowly development would progress. So this domain is very important for assisting the robots and, as I said, the simulation. So certainly there is a huge growth, and there are whatever 4 or 5 companies I am interacting with in India. They are very upbeat, thinking that one company is even saying that I was going to bring product in the market 1/5 of Da Vinci. So that's the way the enthusiasm and the movement is going. But as an academic institute, our role is to give a good training and awareness as well, because as you were mentioning earlier about the robots to take away jobs, I always give the reference to IT booming in 80s, how it was registered by the people. And today, if we go to foreign countries in the airport, we are respected because of that. In India, we used to be known as a kind of from a country where animals like tigers and elephants walk on the streets. But now when we introduce, all of you must be facing, it's still the same. You are the IT giant, or you're good at maths, you are a software thing. So, and which has made us reach to this level what we are today. Yes.
Thank you. And just one last question before we move on to the other sector, to Dr. Shrutin, right? Dr. Shrutin, you mentioned that regulations are always a challenge for healthcare. But is it so? We saw a vaccine being approved and in a year, and being administered, which earlier used to take 5 to 7 years. Do you see a domino effect of situations like this falling into other regulations which are impacting you?
Yes, that is a very good question. Yes, definitely, because what has happened is that regulators also have tried to change the way that they look at medical devices, and also at how they look at AI. And there is also, I would say, a push in from a regulatory perspective as well, to see technologies and sciences which benefit mankind are pushed so that the idea to market time is actually shortened. So I see that in a very positive light, and especially because of the vaccinations, it has really put us in a very strong position now. And I see the same thing happening for robotics in healthcare. So I think regulations would be, or regulators would be more open to actually look at AI, and also I would say encourage doctors and nurses to use automation in a much larger way and approve technologies which really can benefit mankind. Yeah.
Moving on to Sanjay. Sanjay, similar question, applications of robotics in semiconductor manufacturing. What are the top ones that you have seen in your career? So go ahead, please.
So I think like everyone said, every sector is taking a disruptive change, and semiconductor manufacturing, as we have been hearing, most of us has been a bigger challenge. But one thing that it highlighted in recent times, that semiconductor manufacturing, number one, is located into very few countries like Korea, Taiwan, and some parts of US. And because of that, the sophistication required is of immense importance, and also the cost that requires to run a semiconductor factory, which runs into millions of dollars per day. Now, the reason robotics is an integral part of that is, number one, the efficiency of a semiconductor manufacturing depends upon the runtime. Imagine a single hour of downtime can result in millions of dollars of loss, and not just that, the supply chain breakup. So these factories are supposed to run 24/7. Number one. Number two, the kind of precision that a semiconductor manufacturing requires is like something probably of the highest scale that I can think of in industrial automation. Everything that a semiconductor manufacturing deals with to make a single chip, that cannot be seen by a naked eye. So unlike other industries, here you have to completely rely on something that do not get tired for long working, and something that has the judgment ability even after 24/7 working, and third, which has the accuracy. And all these things we all know. Humans, no matter how smart we are, but we are having a limit. And as an example, if you look into from automotive domain, 90% of the accidents that happen on the road, they do not happen because car electronics had a fault or car mechanics had a fault. They happen because of human error. And they typically divide that 45% perception error, 45% reason judgment error. But long story short, humans do get tired, and they result in a misjudgment. In semiconductor manufacturing, we can't afford that, and that's why high precision, high resolution cameras using computer vision technology, using the connected machines, and using the efficient automation, because the number of elements that are required to make a semiconductor chip runs into thousands. And a wafer, it's like a circular pizza kind of a mask, out of which you carve out these thousands of chips. And the more bigger the wafer fab, the more challenging the task is. And this whole sequence of events happen just like a shop floor. Hundreds of batches are moving in a chain fashion, and hundreds of operations are happening of a miniaturization precision. That is the reason semiconductor manufacturing by far is the most automated and the most important task that uses AI, ML, and robotics applications. And I can only argue that from India's context, that as Indian government is trying to push for Make in India and semiconductor fab as potential reality in times to come, a very high skill labor on how to design, how to manufacture, and how to install, and also how to use these miniaturized robots will be the success criteria for us. And I think this paves again a great future for the whole industry in India.
Thanks, Sanjay. Similar question to you, Pankaj. Automotive has been one of the oldest adopters of robotics. What's new there? What's new in robotics and automotive there? You're on mute, Pankaj.
So with automotive sector, robotics has taken a leap, I would say. I mean, earlier there were only specific areas where the robotic arms and industrial robots would be doing some tasks, typically in the welding side. But now, right from painting to welding, assembling, part replacements, alignment checking, even manipulating the camera to take the visual images for vision AI to, figure out the testing and quality control, all is being done. And companies like Mastercam and they have been doing fantastic about how envelopes for 7 degrees of freedom, 20 degrees of freedom kind of robots would be available, and they can do precision kind of jobs over there.
Thanks. Moving on to RPA, right? I think maybe Sudeep, you can take this. RPA, people have been talking about it for a long time. It's still a $2 billion industry. It's not a big industry per se. Do you see it growing at the rate? And there are a lot of companies who are hugely valued, right? I mean, most of the large unicorns in this space have huge valuations. But do you see it's? Do you think it's hype? Do you think it's actually going as per track? And do you think there are pitfalls in implementation of RPA or understanding of RPA in the overall ecosystem? So Sudeep, any comments on that?
Sure. Thank you for the question, Achyuta. I think for RPA, we need to understand, the use cases that is going to bring in the RPA, right? RPA is all about process automation, all the manual processes in any company, and it can be various functions, HR, vendor management, supply chain, and overall, it's a complete process automation, right? One, I think first thing, which people probably do not relate, is that automation, specifically RPA, is not your long-term strategy. It's never a long-term strategy, okay? The strategy of RPA is only there for 12 to 18 month strategy. So before getting into the RPA, creating a strategy there itself, people need to be clear that it has to be 18 months kind of strategy. Something has to come as a more integrated solution to replace the bots that is doing those jobs, the automation bots that is doing those jobs at this point of time. I think if once that is clear, a lot of things start becoming very clear on how to approach that, okay? But the biggest shift that we are seeing right now in RPA is move toward low-code, no-code technologies, right? Because when you spoke about the unicorns, you are still talking about the groups, which is very, very heavily complex based RPA development, which you need a center of excellence team, which is what we do, right? For a global Schlumberger across the board. But something that we have been very, very aggressively trying is how to democratize the whole RPA. Now, I'll give you an example, okay? Now, suppose we have a team of 100 people building RPA solutions across the board. We can do only as much. We will be limited by our bandwidth capacity and we can do as much fast as we want, but there is a limitation. So the other strategy that we have taken is to democratize the solution, train the people to build their own bots. And this is where low-code, no-code platform has become extremely powerful, right? And this is how, we are talking about automation at scale, okay? So we are probably, the adoption of automation is great, but automation at scale is the transformation we are looking at. So let's take an example. If we are able to use RPA or train our people to build their own bot and they save 30 minutes of their time, productive time in a day, that's it, right? And if we are able to train 10,000 people, which is easy, it's not really difficult. We are able to train 10,000 people to save 30 minutes of their time in a day. Now you multiply 30 by 10,000, it's transformational for any organization. That is kind of even unimaginable right now at this point of time, because I have been talking to a lot of groups that consult in this area, and I've been talking to a lot of companies. there are very few companies even taking this direction. More and more, we started this direction 3-4 years ago, and more companies have started looking into it now based on some of the success that some of us have received in this space. So now that 10,000 people are building their own bots to get 30 minutes gain, that itself is a huge multiplier. But we say 10,000 people are not getting the best of the automation. So they bring it down to 5,000 people, say 5,000 people got really some value out of the automation, right? But even that is very powerful. A center of excellence team cannot do that kind of transformation work. So when you look at the RPA footprint today, like you said, it's a $2 billion industry today. Now you have to look at the multiplier effect instead of incremental growth. This 2 billion can become a 200 billion very quickly, which is already happening. If you look at the adoption of the low-code, no-code technology, it is happening at a very, very fast pace. And where a lot of companies have now shifted toward their approach toward this low-code, no-code, and even the companies are asking people to build their own bots. Even the objective of people in their annual KPOs and KPIs are what automation have you brought in your day-to-day operations and processes. So people are looking for multiplier effect. Once that happens, the footprint and the revenue and the industry itself will still become there.
Thanks, Sudeep. I think that was very informative quick follow-up question to all of you, right? I mean, and look at this as a very esoteric topic. What do we need to do to make robots socially acceptable? I think there's a very negative connotation to robotics in general out there in the world, right? So I don't know whether you also see that, and what do we need to do to make them socially acceptable? Any thoughts?
Yeah, Chita, robots is always a solution to a problem. Why human have invented robotics? It's just to make their life comfortable, right? Now, whenever something is not acceptable, reason if they feel some threat out of it. Whenever we talks about robotics, we say we will be losing, like people will be losing the jobs, right?
Yeah.
Why somebody would be leaving the job? We need to understand the fact. If we focus more upon education, not only in our education system I'm talking about, even a farmer, if we understand how a robots can be beneficial for him to improve the productivity, right? So he will easily be accepting the robot. So the point is, and in fact, today, if you see everywhere, so many things are robots. It's a machine, right? And people are feeling comfortable with them. Now, the point is, whenever we talk about all these challenges, which human would feel, like any common would feel, I would be facing challenges. So they will not be receptive. So this is what we need to understand. So we should stop talking about that it's a threat to humankind. We are inventing robots because to make our life comfortable. So that perception has to be changed. That's the only thing.
I think that's an interesting thing. Yeah, go ahead, Pankaj.
Achyuta, what I feel is there are 4 aspects of this threat perception in society. One is about ethics of AI. So, I mean, would the AI inside a robot be ethical and handle the dilemma that we handle on day-to-day basis with the human intelligence?
It may be a bigger concern. It may be the biggest concern out there.
It's a whole different, seminar topic as such. The second is the threat perception to the jobs as well. People feel, if this element is going to come in, which we started in our initial talks. So that's the second element. Third is the empathy element. People still feel the robotic touch and feel would not have that kind of an empathy, which typically you have when you touch a human being. A nurse giving you medicine would be much different with respect to, robot giving you medicine. And so that empathy, that emotion element would be missing. And last is about the safety challenges. Robots are yet to become more safe and more human. One element which I feel, which will probably in the next 5 years or so, will probably scale up very high, is the missing element of natural language for all Indic languages and all other languages which are possible. So unless we progress very actively on elements where the robots can talk in Hindi, Marathi, Gujarati and all, And the conversation has to be very fluent, number one. Number two, it also has to have that, that punctuation element into it. When you speak a sentence and you modulate it, it's different versus what a robotic process would do. It would just straight away spell out each word with no emphasis at all and monotonous way. These elements, they have to come in. If they happen, then probably we'll have the social acceptance very high. I also want to comment that Makers Lab Tech Mahindra has done an initiative where we have created a language called Bhamal. It's the platform we are creating, which will allow HTML as a use case to be translated into any Indian languages. So that becomes sort of a case where the element of natural language can be integrated into programming as well as in robots as time progresses.
Thanks, Pankaj. Anyone else for this?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to add to what Pankaj said about, there is also a mindset challenge I see in using, automated devices, whether it's a robot or it is a smart devices. And to give you a simple example, maybe 100 years back or 50 years back, when we did not had, let's say, even our spectacles or hearing aid devices, first time when they came, they got a huge resistance because of the mindset of people that they will actually be harming their ears or eyes. And based on the written literature, there was and even today, there is a mindset issue in senior citizens. First time when they want to go for a hearing aid, as an example, and it's a personal experience. Once they start using it, they know that this is actually helping them. It is not their enemy. I think the same mindset exists for the active devices. If we call them passive devices, for the active devices, the same mindset exists because human mind think linearly, but the change in the word happen exponentially. So we are not able to possibly predict that very soon, maybe in a decade's time, these active smart devices will be part of our life, just as our spectacles and hearing aid devices, and they will only help us moving forward. And I can even foresee, if I quote from the Tesla CEO about the future is not very far off when smart chips will be embedded inside our brains, so that we don't need to Google every time. Google is inside our head. It is only helping humans to get more knowledge, because at the end of the day, knowledge is stored, right? Whether it's stored in your brain or stored in a cloud. So I think it's a mindset that will be broken very soon.
So that's the bridge to becoming a full robot.
Yeah, I just wanted to add here, yes, the mindset, even if we do not go to the advanced application of robotics, whatever the mundane jobs it can do even today, there is still a bit of resistance. And one way is the awareness generation, awareness creation. And one example I have seen in Japan is every big companies would have what they call is a museum. Basically, it's a display area of various technologies from past to the future, so that people react coming to those things and they learn that what are the modifications are required. And since this digital world is so open and pandemic has taught us, probably we can create more such programs for the general awareness on the online programs. And these kind of things can be discussed more open forum. And at IIT Delhi, as a part of the Technology Innovation Hub, we are started doing is what we call the Robotics every second Wednesday. It is open for anyone who can come. And we are planning to go to the television media also as a part of organizer of the competition. Have mentioned 2 minutes ago, Doordarshan Robocon, and Doordarshan is planning to have some series of talking about robots applications, not to fear, basically that kind of stuff. So I think the awareness generation might help, or it will help certainly to get rid of all the scares what we have in the people's mind.
Thank you, Professor. Moving on to the next question, it's around standards. I mean, are there standards applicable for robotics out there? Are they under development? Is that something which is stopping the industry from moving forward? I mean, this is a question open to everybody in the panel.
I would like to give the comments here, being a member of the BIS PG18, which is a robotics standards committee. Yes, there are standards in many cases. Industrial robot, certainly there are many, but medical robots, there are mostly controlled by some of these approving authority like FDA in US, kind of thing. And so I'm sure the industry people will talk about it, but there is a need, for example, drone-based technology. The drone flying is, of course, with control now, but then there are specification-related standards are required, and that committee mostly adopting ISO standards and studying in the Indian context and converting into BIS numbers. But certainly this is an important area to be worked on it, so that when the industry people build together, there are at least more than 100, 200 small startup companies who are making things for education purposes in the schools and colleges. But many of them are not following standards, and which is actually creating harm than the good in terms of robotic education in the schools and the colleges. So I think one should be looking into the standards even for the educating students, but I let industry people speak more on that. Thanks.
So if I may add to what Professor B said, taking an example of automotive industry where driverless cars, for example, is example of a robot which is very much into R&D these days, and many companies like ours are investing millions of dollars into the research. One key aspect which is going from the standards perspective is functional safety, which we call also as ISO 26262 standard. And without this, there is a possibility that while automating cars and while making them driverless, we might create more harm to the people who are sitting inside or people who are outside by not make them functionally safe. So the functionally safe standard itself guarantees that no matter how much innovation you do for automation, it should not be creating any human or physical harm. The second standard, which is the other side of the kind of coin, is cyber security, because most of these automated devices can have a possibility for hacking, and we know that, as you know, in any society there are good people, there are bad people. So if no matter how good the device is, if it can be hacked from outside and people can misuse it for bad reasons, right, it is equally dangerous. So these are the two standards which are I would say work in progress. The first one is very mature, already under implementation across automotive industry, and similarly the drone industry and healthcare industry and other medical precision industry. These things are already happening. Cyber security is more of I would say current trend, work in progress, and it's as technologies are innovating themselves, the hackers are also innovating themselves. So it's more of a, I would say, continued journey, and will again be a great opportunity for a lot of standardization in this decade.
I concur with Sanjay on this, because this is going to be more of a work in progress. Standards are there,
Yes.
but each time the evolution happens, new things come up. The standards have to change and they have to adopt to the new things. Earlier, you would only have robots with the specific shape, size, and sort of typically robotic arms in the industries. But now the shape and size are increasing. You have different types of robots, different kinds of robots, different industries to operate upon. Then augmentation of convergence of technologies like AI plus IoT plus robotics plus drone technology, all merging together and forming a common core. So the standards have to arise from all of these sectors as well. So the standards would change. It's a work in progress which will continuously evolve. That's what I feel.
Any more comments from anyone else? Otherwise, we move to the next section.
See, there is no as such regulatory to set up these standards for, because robotics specifically is not an industry. Every industry have their own standards and procedures. Manufacturing companies of robots, they already have their own standards how to operate those robots, right? I'll take some example like KUKA, Fanuc and all. They have their own manual system. This is what the company have to follow. Mr. Subi rightly said, it is the concern area is majorly in the education sector, wherein new companies, new startups are coming up, and they are trying to innovate something. And whenever they are not following the this standards, right? When they are experimenting something, so there has to be certain guidelines which probably government has to form, and that is the requirement. Otherwise, at the industry level, I think it's already there in the process.
Thank you. So I think, I know we have about half an hour left, so we'll quickly move on to the India piece, right? I mean, how does the India landscape look like for robotics? I mean, where are Indian companies or Indian talent, effectively being utilized or create robotic products or solutions? This is a question open for all of you because you are a part of the ecosystem over here. Any opening comments? Maybe Rajkumar, you want to start?
Yeah, I would say when we talk about robotics, there are three stakeholders. One is government, then corporate, and the education sector. Fortunately, this government have taken lots of initiative to develop the entire ecosystem for robotics. So I'll take one by one. So for example, to develop the awareness, they have run lots of schemes. In schools, they have done the subtle tinkering lab they have set up so that students should be aware of the robotics projects and they should be making the career about it for this thing. So this is one part. And then after for the startups also, they are running lots of schemes to fund, especially in AI sector and robotics sectors. Lot many schemes at the state level. I can talk about Karnataka government and Tamil Nadu government. Both are investing heavily, and AP government as well. So that smart, startups can be, initiating new development and new projects as well. So government is already taking the initiative. Now there's a huge gap between corporates and the education sector, because whenever we talk about any technology like robotics, it's not a traditional kind of an education. So both the stakeholders have to come together. Say, that at the engineering college level, because Mr. Subi can also give some lights on this topic. Mostly professors, they are not upgrading themselves for the technology. So there has to be lots of technology programs, faculty development programs to be introduced, and corporate has to come into the picture in this case, so that all the trainers, professors should be having experience and upgrading themselves, and the same that can be delegated to the students, right? So this is another factor. And at the infrastructure level also, in any education institutions, they have to build an infrastructure wherein upgraded technology driven kind of an ecosystem like incubation center or lab should be there. In fact, we have also taken some initiative. We have set up a center, experience zone on Industry 4.0 at NPC Bhavan in New Delhi itself, right? So whatever the technology kind of industrial robotics are used in, in different corporates and companies, that prototypes are being installed there. And so the anybody who visits there and they can have an experience how industries are using robots. And we are also driving lots of faculty development program. So all engineering professors can come out there and learn from the experts and experts who are working in the industry, not from the education background. So that bridging is very, very important. So all these three stakeholders should come into the same page, and then only we can expect something good to happen in this, for the development of this industry.
Great. Yes. Anything else?
Yes, I will add. I think the last part what Mr. Sharma is telling is a very valid point. Talking about faculty development program or even the students training program, most of the academic institutes go the teaching in a very classical way, what you call blackboard teaching or whatever it is. What is required is an experiential based learning, and one of the good way I find it is actually engage them in some kind of competitive events, because competitive events to the students give a very, energetic thrust. I have to win, I have to win. And in that process, if you can get them make things on their own hands, there is no better learning experience than that thing, because when they fail to make robots working, for example, if it's a bolt, for example, which has failed during the competition, they will come out and say why the bolt has failed, what is the diameter of it. Then they will start learning that, okay, the design course was how relevant the design course was to them. Same with the electronic circuit and stuff like that. So we need to have more of experiential learning based training, both for teachers as well as for the student. But in a mass scale training, this is little difficult, but there are innovative ways. The academic institutes have to adopt those things and move forward. That is one. The second, one of the major hindrances is the economic manufacturing setups and processes actually. For example, few years ago, even a simple system like a simulators, which one company was ready to provide, but at the last, they refused to give me, and I had to go to a lot of trouble to deliver to the customers. So for defense manufacturing, yes, there are the very precision manufacturing processes are there. They're very expensive. But if you talk about I making a robot for small, medium scale industries, I cannot go to any shop even in NCR region who can give me with reasonable cost and reasonable time. Maybe West is better. Pune, this Maharashtra and Gujarat is still better, but NCR and other parts of the country, it is very, very difficult. So we need to have some industry support, I would say, or ecosystem to build up to support this kind of area, so that even startups can build more precision, robust robots with economic cost. Yeah.
So, Achyutam, I feel is that I'm very optimistic about how India would fare with the the burst of technology in the robotics side. India is poised very well. We have a lot of pool of technologists who are very, very strong in these skills, especially because robotics per se touches upon the same technology which is being used in IT, our genetic pool and our educational system, which has been very strong on mathematics and physics part of it. So those skills, they come to play, and government has played an enabler in this. They have given a lot of leverage, as somebody said. We have Atal tinkering labs, we have Atal incubation centers. They're playing very well. I see robots all around. I've been on lot many forums. I've been a judge and all, and I see people doing much better than what we were doing earlier. Today, even in the first India robotics and other kinds of challenges, first challenge and all, we are doing much better. We are playing in the first top 5 of them, all such challenging competitions as well. So we have a very bright future in this industry.
And a related question, right? I mean, how do you rate India as a center for development of global robotic applications? Maybe Sudeep, Pranav, Pankaj, you guys could take a shot at this. Software applications, robotic RPA and applications. How do you rate India as a destination, as a location for doing this?
I would say we are as good as probably Canada and US, no less than them.
Sudeep?
Hi, sorry, Achyuta. I think there was a little bit of internet issue there. So while I agree with Pankaj, we have huge potential. We will, massively. I think India in robotic space in the global footprint, we will definitely do well. Okay. When is the question? How long will it take to do that? Is the question. Okay. Let's little bit reflect back. Specifically, I'm going to talk about a little bit of on the software robotics part of it rather than industrial. I'll keep there. Look back at our software industry, how it has evolved. Okay, the software industry, while India is called as the hub of all the software development that happens across the world, we are still primarily a services-based, organizations. Right, our whole journey started as doing services or catering services to other companies, other groups. Okay, so there was a little bit of risk averseness, right? We were not pro taking risk. Okay, and when we are talking about startup has to develop that and kind of do that, we are talking about an ecosystem which is more prone for the companies and people to come and take risk. So for me, the way I see it, it will take a little bit of generational effort to move there, because in last 15 years is what we are seeing all the startups and the unicorns coming out of India. Before that, they were not unicorns. They were all companies that have built They were built on top of services. In fact, I don't even think of products before 15 years, the product that has been developed from India itself. It has changed. Last 15 years, it has changed for sure. I mean, we have someone from Flipkart itself, right? So it has changed, and that mindset, that startup culture, startup mindset has brought in a lot of changes in the world today. And this is where now even the world is looking at India to lead globally in those space. Okay, honestly, world is expecting much more from India overall to do much more what we are doing today, right? I think somewhere in, because the generation that is leading today is still the generation that is coming from a little bit where we were a little bit risk averse and we wanted to be safe and make sure we balance. The generation that is gone into now, that is probably in 20s, and they are more, they want to take risks, they want to challenge themselves, they want to get in those space, right? So I think once they get into a little bit of leadership positions, we will start seeing this happening. This is why I'm saying it will take a little bit time, even though we have all the potential, we have the capabilities, we have talent, we have knowledge, we have amazing educations to do that kind of state. Even if you look at, even if you look at the global capability centers that we have in India today, these are the centers of like Philips we have here, like Schlumberger we have here, and the centers that is there of at a global, and we are a center here. But even there, look at the people and look at the global heads, how many of them, and what is the initiative that is being head from India itself. That itself has a gap. I can give you one of our examples. Out of 7 or 8 leadership positions that we have, exec positions that we have only 1 in India today. Can we reach to a 5 where we are leading all of it? We have changed that a lot. I see a big transformation, big change, and it is changing the mindset of leader also. Once we start taking risks, when we start leading a lot of effort, we will see. And so it's a whole ecosystem thing. It will take time, but it will happen for sure. I'm very optimistic about that.
No, I agree. And it also has to do a lot with aspirations, Sudeep. So often we are happy with what we have, right? Because our peers are happy with what they have, and the generation before that was happy with what they had, right? So I think the aspiration angle will have to build in. But the good part is that if you look at global robotic automation companies, a big chunk of the development teams currently sit out of India. They may not be the leaders of the organizations, but definitely the producers, the thinkers, the creators, right? I mean, now how do you really build on this, on this set of people to build your own companies and build your own entrepreneurial ventures out there? I think that's the interesting part. Wanted to check, are there any supportive government policies that India has kind of implemented for robotics? Anything that you may be aware of?
Achita.
Yes.
Sorry, I think I have a lag. I just want to say a statement, okay? We have the potential, okay? We can do it. And like you said, we have the people with that kind of knowledge. I think large part of Indian workforce is still order takers than the initiators.
Yeah.
Once that change happens, rather than being, because when you look at the workforce, they are looking to wait for instructions coming from the global teams to do some job. They are not looking to come up with initiatives, drive the initiative and take it forward. So I think once we start moving away from the order takers mindset, I think things will happen.
Agree. Thanks. So on the policy question, yeah.
No, I just wanted to add one statement about the change I believe is already happening underneath us. So within this whole segment of robotics, the biggest is industrial automation, and I gathered some facts that India has gained the place among the top 10 countries in the world to be having the most robotics installation. So somewhere there is a movement happening, on a ground level, maybe in an ad hoc manner, but together as a country, we are going there. And I believe, our last 5 years of data also tells that we have doubled the number of industrial robots installation in the country. So I feel very optimistic about future, because the ecosystem is just at an inflection point where the startup funding, the government policies, the industry awareness, and also the engineering awareness among various academic institute, everything is coming to a point where it will result in a fission or a fusion reaction, whatever it is. So I'm very optimistic.
I just wanted to add one more point to what Sanjay is saying. Apart from enablement from the government, from the academia, and the enthusiasm of our generation, there's one more element which is now very actively playing this role. Though we had a lot of the service mindset with people, but the leadership of all corporates now is cognizant of the fact that this is an inflection point, and we need to change. They are changing, and they are now ready to support such elements of new age technologies like robotics as such.
Achyuta,
Yes.
I wanted to share this information which I have briefly mentioned during the last 1.5 hours is the government NMICPS program, National Mission on Intelligence and Cyber Physical Systems. So all elements of robotics actually are being emphasized in all these technology innovation hubs. Just to start with IIT Delhi, as I said, collaborative robotics. IC Bangalore is in robotics and autonomous systems. And IIT Madras is a sensors and actuators. IIT Kanpur is cyber security. In this way, total about 4,000 crores, roughly about $500 million will be invested in next 5 years to cut down the red tapeism or the bureaucracy to the minimum level. It is a Indian cabinet sanction thing that every such technology innovations have to operate as a non-profit company, and this non-profit company can take the decisions on their own. I fortunately happen to be project director of our IIT Delhi's company called IHFC. I have Foundation for Robotics, and we can fund research, which we have been doing it for the last 1 year. About 45 crores will be given to the research funding, where industries are also included. We are supposed to spend about 50% of our money to the startup companies. And recently we have decided at IIT Delhi to invest about 2 crores to one of our startup companies on drones. We are supposed to collaborate with international bodies, NSF, US, discussion is going on. So this is a good opportunity. If some of you did not know about it, please share this information. That is nmicps.gov.in. There is a nice map talking about who is working on which area, and all of you know we can invest on industry as well. Based on what is the return of investment. So after 5 years, we have to be self-sufficient and stand on our own feet. For example, IIT Delhi has been provided with about 170 crores for next 5 years, but we have to earn our money, which we have started already. Little money is landing last 6 months. So it's a very good program, and India is actually planning to be one of the top in this sector of cyber physical system. I think all of us should take advantage. You're on mute, actually.
Yeah, sorry. So thanks for mentioning that, Professor. So are there any policies globally that you may have come across, all of you, that India can implement? I mean, India can look at to drive adoption of robotics, creation of robotic solutions from India? Anything that you may have come across in other countries that is there?
Global policy for India to make it? Is that the question?
I mean, is there any other country doing something that India can replicate from a policy framework perspective?
Well, I won't know whether any such policy which India should be replicating, but this is initiative the DSP has undertaken, and the first DSP secretary was Ashutosh Sharma, was professor at IIT Kanpur. But I think we need to learn from other countries, sure. China has been very recent examples, but of course the other countries, US, Japan. I'm sure these NMICPS, when they have been formulated, there's a big document about 200 pages, how it should work and all those things. Niti Aayog is very closely monitoring. Every 3 months, they are actually evaluating how the progress is happening and what products are coming out of it. I'm sure this document must have been taken into account, but I won't be able to tell what aspect from which country, but I'm sure it is there in the document.
Yeah. Sure, no problem. And I think it will be interesting to see, how China is managing the labor shift because suddenly become the largest consumptor of robots, and they have been predominantly a labor-centric country. So interesting to probably see, what's happening there and how are they reskilling people and moving them across so that there is enough amount of work available. So I think that's there. Somebody was saying something.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Yes, Sanjay.
Yeah, I was just saying, addition to what Professor said, that I believe that India, although it's changing very fast and it's a positive sign, but still technologies like drone, for example, have long been holded up because of restrictions that these many frequencies are reserved for, let's say, a particular sector, and drones cannot operate. And only COVID has taught us that the contactless is going to be only reality in future as much as possible. And I know that in other countries there is, based on the open policies, they are already delivering goods and medicines and other things, including pizzas, at the doorstep. So India is not far behind. And recently, I think there is some policy announcement that has happened for the drone technologies, because they will be the biggest industrial and consumer robots in next 1 decade that we can clearly see.
Just moving on to the last section on skilling and talent. I think we've talked about India as a destination for creating robotic applications and robots per se. And Professor Subir mentioned that we have still not been able to build a grounds up industrial robot, right? I mean, that's what he had also mentioned. So how do we address the skill challenge? I mean, how do we increase the supply of talent available for robotics? We at NASSCOM, we run something called as Future Skills, where we try to upskill people in these new emerging technologies. Robotics is also one of them. But how do we really take it to scale? I mean, any suggestions from your side on creating a big talent pool for robotic, technology development from India? Open for all.
Yeah, I will add it first actually here. As with other panelists, I fully agree. We have all the talents, all the know-how, all the facilities. But in my own understanding is one important missing link is attitude of working together. And when I say attitude of working together, I'll give you an illustration actually without naming that industry. So there is an industry who has an industrial robot, not for industrial application purposes, but some other application. So, but I asked them actually why you are not transferring this technology to the automotive sector, stuff like that. So they were not very clear about the performance. We say, okay, fine. No, at IIT Delhi, we can do these studies for you, even free of cost. It comes to us, we do, and we found that the accuracy is abnormally high. I mean, not high, rather low actually. So we said, no, what's wrong in this robot? No, let's work on the improvement of this robot. But being a government industry, they felt very insulted on that thing, and they have taken back, and never been seen the end of the day. This is one kind of example. The second kind of example is, again, the government funded very good robot development. It could not reach because of maybe apparent performance issues. And a few years later, I've been told that the person has been picked up by some other multinational. So here, what is important is even between two IITs, many times we find it very difficult to share each other's failure and to work together toward a greater height. So how to enhance that part? If you can do these things with not fear of losing our credibilities or our reputation, then I think all the ingredients are there, as Mr. Pankaj Sharma has mentioned and Sanjay has mentioned. It's all there actually. Just we have to come together and work together and benefit each other. That's my view.
So Achyuta, I would like to point to case studies which I have seen and in the recent times, and in fact I am associated with them. So one is forming a consortium and forming a bond between academia, the industry, and probably there NASSCOM can play a very, very vital role. I see a consortium in Canada which is working specifically on the aerospace sector. And the way they operate is they bring on the table all the elements of the industry side, the academia side, and the startup community to merge together. Similarly, they have a program on EV and autonomous vehicle side. If we can drive something of this kind with Industry 4.0 augmented with a robotic skill set, then probably it could become a good play for everyone.
Yeah. Rajkumar, I think, is there something that you are doing in this space?
Yeah, of course, I would like to share a few things. In fact, government have already introduced one National Research Foundation. They set up in 2020 just to support researchers in new technology, especially AI and robotics, right? AICRA have also taken lots of initiatives with a few organizations like Boston's and say NVIDIA and some other companies as well. We have developed content in new technologies, especially AI and robotics, which is going to be implemented in many of the universities. We already set up a center of excellence in 5 universities, and soon it is going to be rolled out across India, wherein complete all Industry 4.0 related technologies, experience and learning systems would be made available there. That is one. Apart from that, at a basic level, we have also taken an initiative to upgrade existing vocational and computer institutions into robotic skill centers. I would say proudly in last 2 years time, when the pandemic is there and before that as well, we have upgraded almost 150 plus education institutions and computer institution into robotic skill center, wherein train the trainer programs we have rolled out, and we provided all kind of equipment so that student can have experience and learn live projects with the experts as well. So this is one. And second, we need to understand, whenever we talk about skill development, either the student is having interest in technology or he's thinking about the career perspective, right? So when it comes to the career perspective, we have to provide them all that kind of training systems at their education center itself. In fact, we are also coming up with a new project wherein we are going to set up a next generation robotics and AI lab in ITIs. So with the DGT, we are doing this, taking this initiative wherein almost in 5,000 ITIs, probably in next 2 years time, we would be able to set up the complete system, and the trainers will be deployed there to train them on the new technologies. This is another initiative we have taken. And initially, as you said, we are the organizer of largest robotic championship event. It's just to inspire youngsters towards technologies. In fact, I would share one of my experience of last year in 2019 when we have organized. There is an innovation contest wherein any technology like they can introduce whatever they have developed, students. So there was almost 100 top innovations we have seen there. Trust me, most of them can be commercialized, but they were not having any kind of ecosystem wherein they are getting support from the investor side and from the government side. But these are the innovation which is actually can be commercialized. So we are trying to build that ecosystem and giving them a platform wherein they can like we can invite investors and government people. They can showcase their product and services, whatever they are innovating, and can be highlighted. So that kind of things which is required, to be done at this moment. Yeah.
Any more comments from anyone on this?
Maybe I could talk about a bit on the healthcare sector. Yeah, so healthcare sector, it cannot actually grow without capacity building because any new technology, we need to train the nurses and doctors, surgeons on the new technology. And we spend quite a lot of time, not only Philips, but almost all industries in healthcare need to have actually a concerted effort on training and skilling of the staff. What we have done is two things majorly. So we have established a website where it's called as the BCCC. I could share the link later on. And this is a website where startups and other industry folks who are interested in Industry 4.0, what we call as Healthcare 4.0 in the healthcare sector, they can log on to, they can look for partners and develop capacities and help healthcare workers to skill up. That is one. We also have established mixed reality projects on a large scale to build capacity. So especially we partner with a university in Japan where we get the know-how from them, and we try to evangelize it and democratize that in India, where we use mixed reality to train surgeons, nurses on performing various tasks, especially very skilled surgery, and the nurses for doing certain tasks. So yeah, it's a very important aspect of capacity building. And the third thing, which I feel is a bit of a challenge in India, is that there are silos between the healthcare sector and other industries. So if we can dissolve that in the training, especially in colleges and especially pharmacy colleges or biotechnology colleges working with medical and engineering colleges, I still see that as a very big silo. And if we can somehow break these silos in very early stages of students itself, then we could probably have a skill set or a mindset where we could leapfrog and develop much faster. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Shrutin. Last question from my side. What do you want to leave the audience with? One thought for all of you, for each one of you, given that all we have discussed today. Is there something that you want to leave the audience with? One thought from each of you. Please go ahead.
Okay, so I will start. I would say that we are in the 2021st, and the next one decade belongs to automation, AI, ML, and robots all around us. And I won't be surprised in decades from now, we will have our colleagues as some of the smart robots. So please go for it, embrace the change, and ride the wave of innovation and creativity. This is our decade.
Yeah, exactly. Skynet is far away. Don't worry, guys.
So I have only one phrase, that this is our age. Let's grab it. That's all.
See, we have most efficient IT people in India, and world is looking at us, right? It's good time for us, and fortunately, time is supporting us. The government is supporting us. And the people are adaptive to these technologies. So we all should be, coming together, industry, academia, government, and putting best of our efforts to, make India a global leader in these technologies, especially, which is very much possible, what I believe.
I think that's a very good point, Rajkumar. You mentioned that the world is looking at us. I think everybody is looking at us, looking at India to lead, not India to follow. And I think that's where, when it comes to tech, when it comes to anything around tech, and I think that's the biggest plus point that we have in this space today. Anyone else? Yes, Professor. You're on mute, Professor.
Sorry. So since unity is a strength, let us be united in this today's panel, and let's bring more people in the united form to make our dreams fulfilled.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I think one thing we definitely need is to revamp our, education piece. I think because the people who are coming to the workforce now, they are going to lead the transformation. We as leaders, I think we are already there in terms of mindset and in terms of leading this wave. And I completely agree. This decade is about automation, AI, ML, robotics. This decade is about that. But the workforce that is going to come in, they are going to do it, right? They are the one who are going to be the large part behind it, and probably so it has to be started from there. The education has to be really pushed. Lot of and this has to be led by the industry. The industry has to get collaborative effort with academia to do that, because that's the training happens. We run some programs like Ignite and others because we can train people even before they join the workforce for the things that they will really do. I think those are some efforts. So I think it's definitely there. I agree. We have to grab this opportunity. I mean, this is probably one of the best opportunity for us to really shine and show the world what we are capable of.
Absolutely.
Yeah, from a healthcare sector, as all of you may be knowing, we do not have doctors in our villages and far-flung areas. So there we could use automation and AI to a large extent to take healthcare to the villages and good quality healthcare to the villages and far-flung areas. And I think India is at that stage that we can actually do that in the near future. And I think we should grab that opportunity.
Thank you. I think it was very interesting, very insightful discussions today. One of the most that I have been a part of. I would like to thank Global Talent Exchange for arranging this session. I would also like to thank the exceptional leaders and technology gurus in this panel for their time and insights. Great learning experience for me personally, and I look forward to future engagements. So, Avinash, over to you.
Thank you, Achyuta. Indeed, it was really insightful. A lot of learning for me, especially. I'm sure all of us on the panel, took back something with us. So there's a lot of work for us to do. Going forward. We'll have to stay united. The industry, the government, academia will have to come together to make this happen. Indeed. We also have a LinkedIn channel called as Technology Game Changers, which is where we will send you an invite for that, and the dialogue continues there. A lot of information kind of gets posted there. We request you to actively participate so that the rest of the technology world gets benefited out of it. And of course, we will share a copy of this recording with you at the end of the day. Thank you indeed. It was wonderful. It was a pleasure listening to all of you. There's a lot of scope for us. Let's go grab it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.